Welcome to Matters Financial and Geopolitical from the Frontier, and I apologise for my absence, but I'll tell you about it momentarily. Macro thoughts after a marathon session that stretched overnight. The Chamber voted 51 to 49 in favour of the nation's largest tax haul in 31 years. The jury's out on how much everyone's going to benefit from it, but it is a significant political win. US 10-year Treasury yields, however, tumbled 9 basis points on Flynn's guilty plea, biggest fall in over 6 months. Of course, I think that's a head fake because the tax cuts will, I think, lead to a much steeper yield curve. Bond traders on edge after Senate passed tax cut bill and ahead of US jobs report. Home thoughts, must say Kenya Airways Nairobi Paris service is really very, very good. I was reading an article and I just took out a few sentences. One of them is, I am sitting on the terrace of the Mombasa Yacht Club drinking a Tusker beer. It's the local favourite. I asked Richard why none of the thieves had looted the war cemetery. Oh, that's easy, he answered. They are afraid of the dead. And Voi reminded me of Wyoming, both for the dryness of the soil and the sense of it lying on the frontier. This is the road to Mombasa, taken close to the Savo. It's an old photograph to give you a flavour of what that road was like. And this is a photo of Fort Jesus Mombasa, and next to it is the Mombasa Club. I didn't go to the Mombasa Yacht Club, but I certainly used to like to park myself on the veranda and feel the breeze of the Mombasa Club. I watched The Revenant on my flight back. Really very good movie. I can't get this song out of my mind, From Russia with Love by Matt Monro. I also took the opportunity to listen to some more of his music, which I rather liked. Japan's whaling draws fire for possible violation of international treaty. And I thought to myself, when the human story is written, and bear in mind what Don DeLillo said, with the last billionth of a second in the evolution of matter, then our story will be all about how good we were at killing. Victor Hugo, a quote from Les Miserables, there is nothing like a dream to create the future. I like this photograph of Emmanuel Macron in Africa. And my piece over the weekend was headlined, Macron gives France its mojo back. I've known France since I visited with my grandfather when I was 9. In my gap year, my friend Alexander Michaelis and I and others drove his Alfa Sud from London all the way down to the south of France. Then, in the 1990s, I traded the French book and visited frequently. I used to swing a big line then, and once bought the entire French Treasury bill auction. BTFs, Bond du Trésor to be exact, are fixed-rate short-term discount treasury bills issued by the French debt agency Agence France Trésor, and even received a phone call from the central bank governor at the time, Jean-Claude Trichet. The 1990s were a seriously volatile period, and the French franc was tracking the Deutschmark, and George Soros was prone to short-sell French assets, as was his wont. Jacques Chirac was the president and Alain Juppé his prime minister in those heady days. I used to stay in the Aga Khan's favourite suite at the Hotel Meurice. I spent last week in Paris at the invitation of the outstanding French economic councillor Benoît Gautier. And as we crisscrossed the city and visited Station F, billed as the world's largest startup incubator, With space for more than 1,000 startups. It was launched in July by billionaire telecom entrepreneur Xavier Niel with 250 million euros of his own money. Just 4 months since opening, all 3,000 workspaces at the incubator are taken. And the likes of Banque Publique d'Investissement, BPI, where I was asked to make some comments, and I said this. My observation is this: France has got its mojo back. It is quite remarkable, and Macron is a political phenomenon. President Macron, who arm wrestled Donald Trump to a standstill, is 39 years old. He upended a political system that had been in play since World War II under the banner En Marche, a centrist political movement he founded in April 2016, and won the election on 7th May 2017. Macron's party, renamed La République En Marche, together with its ally, the Democratic Movement, secured a comfortable majority in the National Assembly, winning 350 seats out of 577, with his party alone winning an outright majority of 308 seats. Macron's party was a startup, and Macron told attendees at Viva Tech, an entrepreneurial conference in Paris last June, I want France to be a startup nation, a nation that thinks and moves like a startup. France is the second biggest economy in the Eurozone and is forecast by President Macron's government to grow 1.7% in 2017, which would mark its strongest performance since 2011. Third quarter GDP grew at 0.5% and was following growth of 0.6% in the second quarter. Leadership is both an art and a science, and Macron is displaying 21st century leadership skills par excellence. And with this type of leadership, it's translating into a broad-based rising tide. Last week, Macron also set the narrative in France's relations with Africa. He said, I am from a generation for whom Nelson Mandela's victory is one of the best political memories. He also said, you speak to me like I'm a colonial power, but I don't want to look after electricity in Burkina Faso. That's the work of your president, who in the footage promptly walked out of the meeting hall. The colonial struggle is a historical footnote for more than 80% of Africans. There are many African leaders who have relied on the laurels of their colonial struggle, but they are exiting stage left in its speed. Mugabe and Dos Santos refer. Macron is helping to turn the page. As we whizzed by Notre Dame, I recall something from Victor Hugo's Les Miserables. There is nothing like a dream to create the future. These are photographs from Station F, which is an extraordinary converted railway station, the world's largest startup incubator. Take a look. Another photograph of the Eiffel Tower, and one of delicious pomegranates at the Rungis market in Paris, which we visited at 3:45 in the morning. The implied probability of Trump not seeing out his term in office rises to 59% on the Flynn developments is Betfair. Even then, however, impeachment would be a leap. Mr. Mueller can indict anyone he likes except the sitting president. The job belongs to Congress. However, might Trump fire Mr. Mueller? The last time Mr. Trump contemplated sacking the special counsel was in July, when the FBI raided the home of Paul Manafort, Mr. Trump's former campaign chairman, who was indicted on several counts in October. The point is, you may find it hard to resist. Robert Mueller, as I wrote in August, the third's hot breath could be felt on President Trump's collar. What we know now is on or about December 22nd, 2016, a very senior member of the presidential transition team directed Flynn to contact officials from foreign governments, including Russia. So it's entirely possible that when Mueller called Kushner in to talk about Flynn, he'd already had everything Flynn planned to give him. So He was probably asking leading questions at that point in time. Deals like this are offered only when a witness can incriminate someone higher up the food chain, which was Jared Kushner. How long before the White House claims that Jared Kushner is really Barack Obama's son-in-law? President Trump said, "I had to fire General Flynn because he lied to the Vice President and the FBI. He has pled guilty to those lies. It is a shame because his actions during the transition were lawful. There was nothing to hide." And I said in August again, President Trump is a unique individual, but his Twitter account gives us surgical and real-time insights into his mental state. And essentially that tweet gives us your obstruction case right there. Donald Trump's stupidity protects him. It makes it difficult to prove intent, says the Spectator. In this photograph from Jerome Cartillier, Wall Street landing zone, Manhattan. As I said in August, there is a prima facie case right here. It's in plain sight. The fact that Flynn was charged with and is pleading guilty to such a minor crime suggests a bombshell of a deal with prosecutors, says Jens Olin. If this is the entirety of the plea deal, the best explanation for why Mueller would agree to it is that Flynn has something very valuable to offer in exchange. Damaging testimony on someone else. Who, that's not clear, but it probably is someone of the center or close to the center of this criminal enterprise. Interesting article in the New Yorker about Michael Flynn calling it general chaos. He said to the New Yorker, "I want to go back to having an out-of-sight role." He's not going to get that. The story is bigger than Mike Flynn, said a senior military intelligence official. Who told Mike to do this? I think somebody said, "Mike, you've got some contacts. Let them know it's going to be all right. Mike's a soldier. He did not go rogue." Have a look at this 2-minute video footage with the soundtrack of From Russia with Love, Mueller Time by Soviet Sergei. And I go back to December 2016 when I wrote, "We have a deviate tomahawk." And I was quoting Don DeLillo and essentially talking about interference in the election. And I said, "I've no doubt that Putin ran a seriously 21st century, predominantly digital program of interference which amplified the Trump candidacy." I said then as well, he has proved himself an information master and his adversaries are his information victims. Ben Rhodes, Russia succeeded because they knew tech platforms had no antibodies for fake news. Listen to this short clip with General Flynn, who says we have an army of digital soldiers. Apparently, Trump orders from McDonald's with a dinner order consisting of 2 Big Macs, 2 filet of fish, and a chocolate molten. So for now, I think although it's very dramatic, I don't think the president is under threat, although his son-in-law will need to protect the big guy. Currency markets, let's take a look. Euro dollar is at 118.70, dollar index 92.89, Japanese yen 112.74, big move touched 113. Swiss franc 0.9824, the pound is at 134.68. The Australian dollar 0.7605, Indian rupee 64.586. South Korean won 1089.76, Real 325.82, Egyptian pound 17.713, and the rand, which recovered off lows around 14.40, is now at 13.77. The US dollar dipped on Friday following the news that former National Security Advisor Michael Flynn pleaded guilty to lying to federal agents, but then subsequently recovering. Euro dollar 118.70. The Canadian dollar rallied strongly after upbeat Canadian GDP and jobs data last 127.18. Bitcoin regained 10,000 and has now crossed 11,000 last time I had a look. And I wrote about it, calling it, "Wow, what a ride." And It's saying that we're now in a parabolic phase. It is a curve, each of them feels unmistakably. It is the parabola. Brexit may leave banks on the hook for impossible contracts. I like the photograph of this. I once occupied an office in Credit Suisse in that very photograph. Commodity markets, the rally in front-month WTI oil prices is approaching the 200-week moving average at $58.76. We're at $57.95. My target is now 62. 13th of November, I wrote about why I was bullish on oil in an article called The Capture of a 32-year-old wannabe king in the future price of crude oil. Here's another WTI chart. We're last at 57.95. With respect to the spot crude oil market reprice, I think it's got further to run and it will take Brent over $70 a barrel. Have a look at a Brent chart here. We're around $62.26. $63.26. Looking for 70. Gold lost at 1274. Emerging markets, Brazil is back. The Brazilian's PMI reached an 81-month high in November. Angola's new president flushes out his predecessor's wealthy clan is a headline article in The Economist when João Lourenço said on the eve of Angola's election in August that as president he would have all the power. Few took him seriously. The former defense minister had been handpicked by José Eduardo dos Santos, seemingly as part of a deal to protect his interests. The opposition dubbed him the chauffeur, since Mr. dos Santos would tell him where to go. On November 20th, in defiance of a law introduced by his predecessor, Lourenço fired the police chief and the head of the intelligence agency. Then he sacked Mr. dos Santos, taking over the security apparatus. He seized control of two of the three main sources of power in Angola. It has become clear how sick and tired the country was with how things were, said Paulo Faria. Successful resistance from within the party seems unlikely. Mr. Lourenço's assault on the former president's gilded empire is winning over at least some Angolans on social media. Many have shared an image from The Terminator, a film with Mr. Lourenço's face replacing that of the He-Man star, Arnold Schwarzenegger, two guns held aloft. The caption reads, "The Relentless Remover." The presidential motorcade is said to stop now at red lights. Mr. Lourenço was seen queuing for a meal at KFC, a fast food chain. In a country where the rich and powerful have been above the law for years, such small gestures have carried weight. Even the previous government's loudest critics have come out in support. Lusty Berao, an Angolan rapper and activist who was jailed by the old administration, said he was stunned by Mr. Lourenço's actions, calling it a revolution. The Kwanzaa trade on the black market at just 40% of the official rate. Plenty of challenges, but he's burning the ground underneath Dos Santos' feet. Zimbabwe's military has muscled into the first post-Mugabe cabinet. One of the people appointed is Shiri, who's feared and loathed by many Zimbabweans as the former commander of the North Korean-trained 5th Brigade that played a central role in the so-called Gukurahundi massacres in Matabeleland. Zimbabweans were expecting a sea change from the Mugabe era after all, had there not been a revolution, or so they thought. I thought, after waiting so patiently like a crocodile, he would have moved with more political cunning, i.e. inclusivity. The genie is, in my opinion, however, out of the bottle. The ZANU PF tweeted, "Don't stop believing, the new era is here." After Mugabe's fall, Zimbabwean inflation has fallen like a stone from the previous high of 365% annual inflation in October to 60% in December. The essence of this is that you compromise the head of state, that you have the head of state in your pocket. This is about the Zupta economy in the FT. South African all-share up 17.36% year-to-date. Dollar versus rand 13.7738. Nigerian all share up 41.19% year to date. Ghana Stock Exchange Composite Index up 49.28% year to date. Virunga, for all its natural splendor, it's a small island of immense natural resources in a sea of humanity at odds with itself. And in this photograph, you can see a view of Dar es Salaam from Kenya Airways, Kariuki Mwangi. Breaking news from yesterday, President Uhuru dissolved his cabinet, instructed cabinet secretaries to vacate office. Interesting article in the Wall Street Journal about supermarket chains collapse shows perils of Africa's hottest retail market, about Nakumatt. Take a look. Williamson T reported first half profit before tax was positive at 61.958 million. Turnover was up 0.335%. Profit and loss before tax was 61.958 million versus a loss of 375.877 million last time. Earnings per share 2.93 versus a loss of 13.21 last time. They struck a somber note in their commentary, as they tend to. Tea production was low not only for the group but across the tea industry due to severe drought conditions experienced in the first few months of the year. Reduced supplies were met with good demand, which boosted prices during the period under review. The group reported a profit during the 6 months, mainly from investment and other non-operational activities. Cost of production remains the biggest concern for the group and the tea industry at large. Much publicized strike orchestrated illegally by union leaders in the month of October and early November, resulting in major losses which will affect performance for the next 6 months. Future, therefore, remains very unpredictable. Market cap is 2.9 billion versus total equity of 5.96 billion, which is before marking the real estate market. Captoria Tea reported first half earnings, a loss before tax of 20.77 million. Turnover was down 16.7%. Loss before tax 20.778 million. Loss for the period 14.545 million. Negative EPS 1.86 versus negative 11.46. Again, market cap is 594 million versus total assets of 2.16 billion. Big improvement, but narrowly missed booking a profit. EABL has started local production of Captain Morgan rum. Take a look at EABL's share price. Nairobi all shares up 29.8% so far this year, and the NSE 20 is up 19.75% so far this year. Once again, thank you for stopping by.